Welcome to the Meridian Grand. We're honored to have you with us." The woman behind the reception desk spoke with perfect professional composure. Her voice was steady. Her smile was polite, but her eyes told a completely different story. The man standing before her went completely pale. His confident stride had stopped mid-step. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The woman beside him, dripping in designer clothes and expensive jewelry, noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" she whispered, her hand still on his arm. He couldn't answer. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't move. The woman next to him looked between them, confusion spreading across her face. "Do you two know each other?" The question hung in the air like smoke. The lobby went silent. Other guests turned to watch. Staff members paused mid-task. Even the soft piano music seemed to fade into nothing. The woman behind the desk looked directly at the man who'd gone white as a sheet. Her voice remained calm, almost eerily calm, when she spoke again. "Yes, he's my husband." 3 words. That's all it took. 3 words to shatter a man's entire world in front of a lobby full of strangers. The woman in designer clothes gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Marcus, what is she talking about? But Marcus Rothwell couldn't speak. He stood frozen in the marble lobby of the most exclusive hotel on the coast, staring at his wife, who was supposed to be hundreds of miles away, completely unaware of what he was doing and who he was with. "I see," his wife said softly, her gaze moving to the other woman. Understanding settled across her features. She took in the matching designer luggage, the intimate way the other woman had been holding her husband's arm, the guilty horror painted across Marcus's face. "Belle," Marcus finally managed to choke out. "I can explain." "Can you?" Belle asked. Her composure never cracked. "Please, I'd love to hear it. Before we dive into how this marriage exploded in the worst possible way, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now if you're ready for a story about deception, betrayal, and the moment when carefully constructed lies come crashing down. And subscribe to Mr. David Love Stories because you won't want to miss what happens next. Trust me, this story will stay with you long after it's over. Now, let me take you back to where this all began. 6 days before that devastating moment in the hotel lobby, 6 days before Marcus Rothwell's perfect double life collapsed in spectacular fashion. 6 days earlier, Marcus Rothwell had mastered the art of appearing to have it all. From the outside, his life looked like something out of a magazine. He owned a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the city skyline like a painting. He drove a gunmetal gray Porsche that purred like a predator. He wore custom Italian suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent. His real estate development company transformed forgotten neighborhoods into luxury destinations, abandoned warehouses into million-dollar lofts. People called him a visionary, a success story, a man who'd built an empire from nothing. At home, his wife Isabel believed she knew him completely. She believed in their marriage. She believed in the life they'd built together over 8 years. Isabel Rothwell, Belle to everyone who loved her, was everything Marcus appeared to value. She was elegant without trying, warm without effort. She managed a boutique hotel in the historic district, the kind of place where every room had character and every guest left feeling like they'd discovered a hidden gem. She had a gift for making people feel seen, valued, important. Even after 8 years of marriage, she still left little notes in Marcus's briefcase. "Have a wonderful day. I love you." Small gestures that said she still cared, still thought about him, still chose him every single day. That Tuesday morning looked like any other morning in their brownstone. Sunlight streamed through tall windows. The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen. Belle stood at the counter in a cream blouse and tailored pants, her hotel name badge already clipped to her collar, scrolling through her tablet while her coffee cooled beside her. Marcus appeared in the doorway, adjusting the Rolex she'd given him for their 5th anniversary. "You're up early," Belle said without looking up. "Big day," he replied smoothly. "Meeting with investors." She glanced at him then, offering that gentle smile he'd grown so used to he barely saw it anymore. Another expansion project? Potentially. He poured himself coffee, his movements relaxed and practiced. He'd told this kind of lie so many times it came as naturally as breathing. Could mean a lot of travel over the next few weeks. Belle nodded, setting down her tablet. She was used to his demanding schedule. The late nights, the last-minute trips, The vague explanations about deals and clients and opportunities. Anything exciting? Marcus shrugged with casual ease. Real estate. You know how it is. Lots of talk, lots of paperwork. Boring stuff, really. Where are you looking at properties? Chicago, mostly. Maybe Detroit. The lie rolled off his tongue like he'd rehearsed it. Because he had, several times, in front of the mirror while getting dressed. In the car on the way home from meetings that hadn't been about business at all. Belle picked up her coffee, studying him over the rim. Well, I hope it goes well. You've been working so hard. He crossed the kitchen and kissed her forehead. A gesture that had once meant something and now meant nothing. That's why you married me, right? Ambition. She laughed softly. But there was something in her eyes. A question she didn't quite ask. I married you because you brought me coffee every morning for 3 months straight when we first met. You sat in that corner booth at the cafe near my apartment, and you always had a cup waiting when I walked in. Marcus smiled, but the expression didn't reach his eyes. I remember. Do you? She searched his face for a moment, then shook her head. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. Just feeling nostalgic, I guess. Belle picked up her bag, checking her phone one more time. I have to go. Staff meeting this morning. How's the hotel? Marcus asked, barely looking up from his own phone. Busy. Always busy. She paused at the kitchen doorway, turning back to him. Actually, I should know today about something important. This caught his attention, but only barely. Oh? The company's opening a new flagship property. Ultra-luxury, waterfront location. They're selecting a general manager from existing staff. That's great, Belle. I applied. She said it quietly, like she was afraid to hope too loudly, like she was waiting for him to tell her she was dreaming too big. Marcus looked up then, and for just a moment, he looked like the man she'd married, the one who'd brought her coffee every morning, the one who'd supported her dreams. You did? 3 weeks ago. I didn't want to mention it until I knew something concrete. She bit her lip, a nervous habit she'd never quite lost. The interview is this morning. Marcus crossed to her, and for that brief second, she saw something real in his eyes. You'll get it. You're brilliant at what you do. Warmth flooded her features, a smile that reached her eyes. Thank you. That means a lot. Let me know how it goes. Of course. She reached up and straightened his collar, a gesture so familiar and tender, it should have meant something. See you tonight? Probably late. This investor thing might run long. Okay. She kissed his cheek and walked toward the door. Her footsteps echoed down the hallway. The door clicked softly behind her. Marcus stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the note she'd left beside the coffee maker. You make every day brighter. I'm so grateful for you. He looked at it for a long moment. Then he crumpled it in his fist and tossed it in the trash. He pulled out his other phone, the one Belle didn't know existed, the one he kept in his car, in his office, anywhere but home. He sent a text to a contact saved under a fake name. Everything's set. Friday. I'll pick you up at noon. The response came in seconds. I can't wait. This is going to be incredible. Marcus smiled. A real smile this time. The kind he rarely gave his wife anymore. He had no idea that in less than 72 hours, that smile would be wiped off his face in the most humiliating way possible. Across the city, in a luxury high-rise apartment with river views and furniture that looked like it belonged in a showroom, Sienna Cross was planning what she believed would be the perfect getaway. Sienna had never pretended to be anything other than what she was, a woman who appreciated the finer things in life and had no patience for anything less. She lived in spaces that cost more per month than most people's salaries. She wore brands most people only saw in magazines. Her Instagram feed looked like a lifestyle blog, perfectly curated images of rooftop bars and designer shopping bags and exotic destinations. At 29, she was stunning, and she knew it. Long legs that looked even longer in the heels she preferred, sharp features that photographed beautifully, honey blonde hair that fell in perfect waves whether she tried or not. Marcus Rothwell had walked into her life 10 months ago, at a charity gala. He'd been honest from the start. I'm married, but my wife and we're more like roommates at this point. We've grown apart. Sienna hadn't cared. Marriage was just paperwork as far as she was concerned. What mattered was how a man treated you, what he could offer, how he made you feel. And Marcus made her feel expensive. They met in hotel suites where champagne waited on ice, and city lights glittered beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. He took her to restaurants where reservations required connections, not just money. He bought her things, not because she asked, but because he wanted to see her eyes light up when she opened the boxes. Now she sat in a private corner booth at an exclusive rooftop restaurant, scrolling through photos on her phone, while Marcus sat across from her, his wedding ring noticeably absent. "This one," she said, turning her phone toward him. The image showed an infinity pool overlooking turquoise water, white cabanas, palm trees swaying against an impossibly blue sky. The kind of place that charged $1,000 a night and still had a 6-month waiting list. Marcus leaned closer, studying the photo. "That's the place. The Meridian Grand." Sienna's eyes widened with genuine delight. "You're serious? You actually booked it? 5 nights, oceanfront suite, private terrace, couples spa package, the works." She reached across the table and grabbed his hand. "Marcus, this is insane." He grinned, clearly enjoying her reaction. "You deserve it. When do we leave?" "Friday afternoon. Private charter. We'll be on the beach by sunset." Her smile faltered, just slightly. A question she always asked, but never liked asking. "And your wife?" Marcus didn't even hesitate. Didn't look guilty or uncomfortable. "She thinks I'm in Chicago looking at properties for an expansion. I'll be back before she even notices I was gone." Sienna shook her head, laughing. "You're terrible. You love it." She couldn't argue with that. She took a sip of her wine, then pulled up more photos. "What's the hotel like? I mean, besides gorgeous, brand new, ultra luxury, just opened last month. It's supposed to be the most exclusive property on the entire coast. 5-star, everything, Michelin-starred restaurant, spa that costs more per treatment than some people's car payments. Have you stayed there before?" "No, but I know the chain. They don't do anything halfway." He slid a leather folder across the table. "Look." Sienna opened it, her eyes scanning the documents inside. 2 reservation confirmations, spa appointments for couples, massages and facials, dinner reservations at the hotel's signature restaurant, a sunset yacht excursion, every detail planned, every moment accounted for. She looked up at him, genuinely impressed. "You really went all out." "Only the best," he said. She leaned back in her chair, twirling her wineglass between perfectly manicured fingers. "Does she even know how lucky she is?" "Who? Your wife?" Marcus's expression shifted, just for a second. Something that might have been guilt flickered across his features and then disappeared. "Belle's different. She doesn't need all this. Every woman needs all this. She's happy with simple things. Books, coffee shops, quiet evenings at home." Marcus shrugged. "It works for her." Sienna scrunched her nose like she'd tasted something bitter. "Sounds boring." "It is," Marcus said. It wasn't entirely true. Belle wasn't boring. She was kind and thoughtful and steady. She remembered anniversaries and birthdays. She asked about his day and actually listened to the answers. She built a home that felt warm and welcoming instead of just expensive. But steady felt suffocating when Sienna was right in front of him, sparkling and dangerous and new. "Well," Sienna said, raising her glass, "here's to 5 days of absolutely no boring evenings." Marcus clinked his glass against hers. "To paradise." "To us," Sienna added, her eyes bright with anticipation. Neither of them had any idea how quickly paradise could turn into a reckoning. Neither of them knew that the universe was already setting the stage for one of the most spectacular confrontations either would ever experience. At that exact moment, Isabel Rothwell sat in a sleek conference room on the 40th floor of a corporate high-rise. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap. Her heart pounded so hard she was certain everyone in the room could hear it. 3 executives sat across from her, 2 men in expensive suits, 1 woman with sharp eyes and a sharper suit. They reviewed documents, exchanged quiet murmurs, made notes Belle couldn't see. Finally, the woman looked up and smiled. "Isabel, we'd like to offer you the position." For a moment, Belle couldn't breathe. The words didn't quite register. She'd hoped, she'd prepared, she'd dreamed, but hearing it out loud felt surreal. "I'm sorry," she managed. "Really?" The woman nodded, her smile widening. "Your performance at the historic district property has been exceptional. Your guest satisfaction ratings are the highest in the region. Your team retention is remarkable. 73 staff members, and you've had 0 turnover in 18 months. That's unheard of in hospitality. One of the men leaned forward. Your vision for experiential hospitality, for making guests feel like they're not just staying somewhere but belonging somewhere. That's exactly what we want for the Meridian Grand. Belle felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back quickly, trying to maintain her composure. Thank you. This means everything to me. The other man slid a folder across the glossy conference table. This is your offer package. You'll oversee the entire property. Staff, operations, guest experience, vendor relationships, everything. It's a significant step up from your current role. Belle opened the folder with trembling fingers. She scanned the details. Salary increase that made her breath catch. Relocation assistance. Performance bonuses. Full authority over hiring and vision. And then she saw the location. The Meridian Grand. Coastal resort and spa. She'd seen photos during development. A stunning beachfront property with architecture that looked like art. Infinity pools that seemed to pour into the ocean. Private bungalows. World-class dining. The kind of place people saved for years to visit. When would I start? She asked. Immediately. We need you on site by Friday to shadow the interim manager over the weekend. You'd officially take over Monday morning. Friday, 3 days away. Belle's mind raced. She'd need to arrange coverage at her current hotel. Pack. Find temporary housing until she could secure something permanent. Call her sister. Tell Marcus. Marcus. She imagined his face when she told him. His pride. His excitement. Maybe they'd celebrate. Maybe this was exactly what their marriage needed. A fresh start. New energy. Something to reconnect them. I'll need to arrange some things at home, Belle said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her thoughts. But yes, absolutely yes. The woman stood, extending her hand across the table. Welcome to the team, Isabel. We're excited to have you lead this property. We think you're going to do extraordinary things there. Belle shook her hand. Then the others. She walked out of that conference room feeling like she was floating 6 inches off the ground, like the entire world had suddenly opened up in ways she'd only imagined. She wanted to call Marcus immediately, to scream with joy, to share this incredible news with a person who was supposed to be her partner in everything. But then she remembered. He'd mentioned travel, Chicago, investor meetings. He might already be in meetings, probably busy. She'd wait, surprise him when she got home. Maybe she'd cook his favorite meal, open that bottle of wine they'd been saving, celebrate properly. What Isabel didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have imagined, was that Marcus wouldn't be in Chicago. He'd be standing in her hotel lobby in exactly 3 days, with another woman on his arm, staring at his wife like his entire world had just collapsed, because that's exactly what was about to happen. Friday arrived with golden sunshine and the kind of perfect weather that made everything feel possible. Marcus woke early in the penthouse. Belle had already left for the coast, though he didn't know that. She'd left before dawn, too excited to sleep, too eager to begin this new chapter. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Something came up with work. I'll call you later. Love you. Marcus had barely glanced at it before tossing it aside and focusing on his own plans. He packed light, designer swim trunks, linen shirts, expensive sunglasses, everything tailored for luxury and leisure, and a woman who wasn't his wife. He told his assistant to forward only urgent emails. He told the building's concierge he'd be gone for the week. He left a voicemail on Belle's phone, knowing she'd probably be too busy to answer. Hey babe, heading to Chicago. Meetings all weekend. I'll check in when I can. Love you. The lie came so easily now, so naturally. No hesitation, no guilt. Just practiced deception delivered in a loving tone. He picked up Sienna at noon. She emerged from her building wearing a sleek white dress that probably cost more than most people's mortgage payments. Oversized designer sunglasses, her hair perfect despite the breeze. I can't believe we're doing this, she said, sliding into the passenger seat of his Porsche. Believe it, Marcus replied. The drive to the private airstrip took 40 minutes. They talked about nothing important. The weather, the resort, the things they do, every word layered with anticipation. The chartered plane waited on the tarmac, small but luxurious, leather seats that reclined into beds, a flight attendant who poured champagne before takeoff. Sienna took selfies with the clouds in the background, already planning which ones she'd post to Instagram later. She'd have to be careful, of course. Crop him out. Keep it vague. But the lifestyle, the luxury that she could show. Marcus watched her, feeling that addictive rush of being wanted, being chosen, being the center of someone's excitement. The flight was smooth. 90 minutes that felt like 20. They landed at a small coastal airport where a black car waited on the tarmac, driver already standing beside it. "Mr. Rothwell," the driver said with a professional nod. "Welcome. I'll be taking you to the Meridian Grand." "Perfect," Marcus said. The drive along the coastal highway was stunning. Ocean on one side, cliffs and palm trees on the other. The kind of scenery that belonged in movies or postcards. Sienna had her window down, her hair whipping in the breeze. "This is paradise," she said. "Just wait until you see the hotel," Marcus replied. 20 minutes later, the Meridian Grand appeared like something out of a fantasy. White stone architecture that seemed to glow in the afternoon sun. Cascading water features at the entrance. Palm trees framing the driveway like sentinels. And beyond it all, through the archways and open spaces, the endless blue of the ocean. Sienna gasped. "Marcus, oh my God." "Told you," he said, unable to keep the satisfaction out of his voice. The car pulled up to the entrance. A valet in a crisp white uniform immediately opened their doors. Another valet appeared to handle their matching designer luggage. "Welcome to the Meridian Grand," the valet said warmly. "We hope you enjoy your stay." Marcus and Sienna walked through the entrance doors, which opened automatically, and then they stepped into the lobby. It was breathtaking. Soaring ceilings that seemed to touch the sky. Marble floors so polished they reflected everything like mirrors. A chandelier made of thousands of glass crystals, catching the light and scattering it in rainbow patterns across the walls. Soft piano music drifted from somewhere unseen. The scent of jasmine hung in the air. Subtle and expensive. Sienna stopped in her tracks, her mouth slightly open. "This is incredible." Marcus slipped his arm around her waist, feeling like he'd won something, like he'd conquered something. Only the best. They moved toward the reception desk, a sleek mahogany structure that looked more like art than furniture. Behind it stood a woman in a tailored black suit. Her back was to them as she organized something on the computer. "Good afternoon," the woman said without turning around. Her voice was professional, warm, perfectly modulated. "I'll be right with you." "No rush," Marcus said. The woman turned around, and everything stopped. Marcus felt the world tilt beneath his feet. His confident stride faltered. His breath caught in his throat. All the blood drained from his face so quickly he felt lightheaded. Sienna noticed immediately. Her hand on his arm tightened. "What's wrong?" But Marcus couldn't answer, couldn't speak, couldn't think, because standing behind the reception desk, wearing a name badge that read Isabel Rothwell, general manager, was his wife. Belle looked at him with an expression he'd never seen before, not shock. She'd clearly known he was coming. Her name was on the reservation. She'd had time to prepare, to steel herself, to decide how she'd handle this moment. "Welcome to the Meridian Grand," Belle said. Her voice was steady as glass, professional as anyone could possibly be. "We're honored to have you with us." Marcus opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Sienna looked between them, confusion spreading across her features. "Do you two know each other?" The question hung in the air. Other guests in the lobby started to notice something was wrong. A couple waiting nearby turned to watch. The concierge paused mid-conversation. Even the piano music seemed to fade into the background. Belle's eyes never left Marcus. Those eyes that had looked at him with love and trust for 8 years, now looked at him with something else entirely, something that made his stomach drop. "Yes," Belle said quietly. "He's my husband." The lobby went completely silent. Sienna's hand flew to her mouth. The sound she made was somewhere between a gasp and a choke. "What?" Belle finally looked at her, really looked at her. She took in the designer dress, the expensive jewelry, the way Sienna's hand had been resting possessively on Marcus's arm just moments before, the matching luggage, the intimate familiarity between them. "I see," Belle said softly. Understanding settled over her face like a shadow. "Belle," Marcus finally found his voice, though it came out strangled and desperate. "I can explain." "Can you?" Belle tilted her head slightly. Her composure cracked just a hairline, but it was there, a tremor in her voice, a brightness in her eyes that might have been unshed tears. "Please, I'd love to hear it." Sienna turned on Marcus, her voice rising with each word. "Marcus, what the hell is happening? Is she really your wife?" Belle answered before Marcus could. 8 years. Married in a garden ceremony in June. He wore a gray suit and cried during the vows. Her voice was calm, almost eerily calm, but her eyes were bright and sharp. "Should I keep going, or have you heard enough?" Sienna backed away from Marcus, like he'd suddenly caught fire. "You told me," she started, her voice shaking with anger and humiliation. "You said she didn't matter. You said you were basically separated. You said, don't." Belle's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Don't say another word. Not here. Not my hotel." The weight of those words landed heavily. My hotel. 2 words that changed everything. Marcus stared at her, realization dawning with horrifying clarity. "You got the job." "I did." Belle's smile was bitter and beautiful all at once. "Started today, actually. Isn't that funny how things work out?" "Please," Marcus said. His voice cracked. "Belle, please, can we just talk?" "Unfortunately, I'm working." Belle gestured to the lobby around them. "And you're a guest. So I'm afraid personal conversations will have to wait." If you enjoyed this story and can't wait to see what happens next, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what you would do in Belle's position. Would you stay professional, cause a scene, walk away? Let me know below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click that button now because this story is about to get even more intense. Belle turned her attention to her computer, pulling up a reservation with practiced efficiency. "You have a reservation, Mr. Rothwell. Oceanfront suite. 5 nights. Couples, spa package. Everything is exactly as you requested." The formality of Mr. Rothwell stung more than Marcus expected. "I don't want the room," he said desperately. "I want to talk to you, and I want to do my job." Belle's fingers moved across the keyboard without trembling. "So I suppose we're both disappointed." Sienna grabbed her purse from the luggage cart. Her hands shook. Her face was flushed with humiliation and fury. "I'm leaving," she announced to no one in particular. "Sienna, wait." Marcus reached for her arm, but she jerked away. "No, absolutely not. I don't do drama, Marcus. And I definitely don't do wives." Her voice was loud enough that everyone in the lobby could hear every word, every accusation. "You told me you were separated. You told me she knew. You told me it was basically over." "I never said that," Marcus protested weakly. "You implied it. You let me believe it." Sienna's voice broke. "Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" Belle made a small sound. It might have been a laugh, or it might have been something else entirely. "Trust me," she said quietly. "I know exactly how humiliating this is." Sienna looked at Belle, then really looked at her. For just a second, something passed between them. A shared understanding, a recognition of their positions in this terrible moment. "I'm sorry," Sienna said. The words came out barely above a whisper. I mean, he said. "Don't," Belle said again, but gentler this time. "Just don't." Sienna nodded. She turned to Marcus one last time. "You're on your own. Find your own way home." She walked out of the lobby, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. The sound echoed in the terrible silence. Everyone watched her go. Then all eyes turned back to Marcus. He stood there, surrounded by luxury he'd paid for and beauty he'd planned to enjoy, completely and utterly alone. Belle looked past him to the couple who'd been waiting nearby, watching the entire scene unfold. "Mr. and Mrs. Harrison?" She smiled at them like nothing had happened, like her entire marriage hadn't just exploded in public. "Welcome to the Meridian Grand. Let me get you checked in." She stepped around the desk, moving with perfect professionalism, leaving Marcus standing in the center of the lobby like a stranger. "What about me?" Marcus asked. His voice sounded small, lost. Belle paused. She didn't turn around. "Your key cards are on the desk, Mr. Rothwell. Your suite is on the 4th floor. The concierge can direct you. If you need anything during your stay, please don't hesitate to call the front desk. We're here to serve." The dismissal was absolute, final, devastating. Marcus watched her walk away, helping the other couple with their luggage, smiling and chatting like she hadn't just delivered the most crushing blow of his life. A staff member appeared beside him, nervous, uncertain. "Sir, would you like help with your bags?" Marcus looked at the young man, at the keycards on the desk, at the beautiful lobby that had become a nightmare. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Sure." He took the keycards and followed the staff member to the elevator. Every step felt like walking through water, heavy, slow, impossible. The elevator doors closed. Marcus caught his reflection in the mirrored walls. He looked pale, shocked, like a man who'd just lost everything and didn't quite understand how it had happened. The suite was on the 4th floor, oceanfront, corner unit, the best in the hotel. The staff member opened the door, and Marcus stepped inside. It was perfect. King-size bed with silk sheets, private terrace with an infinity pool, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, fresh flowers on every surface, champagne chilling in a silver bucket, rose petals scattered across the floor spelling out the word paradise. It was everything he'd planned, everything he'd paid for, everything he'd wanted, and it was a prison. Marcus stood in the center of the room, surrounded by beauty and luxury, and for the first time in months, maybe years, he saw himself clearly. He'd destroyed his marriage, humiliated his wife, lost the one person who'd loved him unconditionally for 8 years. And for what? A week of excitement, the thrill of secrecy, the ego boost of being wanted by someone new. He sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, and realized he had absolutely no idea what to do next. 2 floors below, in her private office with glass walls overlooking the ocean, Belle finally allowed herself to fall apart. She'd held it together for 4 hours, smiled at guests, handled check-ins, reviewed schedules with her staff, walked through the property with the poise and grace expected of a general manager at a 5-star resort. But now, alone behind a locked door, she collapsed into her chair and let the tears come. They weren't loud, dramatic sobs, just silent, steady tears that rolled down her cheeks and dripped onto her folded hands. She didn't wipe them away. She just let them fall. She'd known something was off for months, felt it in her bones. The distance between them had grown so gradually, she'd almost convinced herself she was imagining it. The way he looked through her instead of at her, the late nights that became later, the business trips that seemed to multiply, the distraction, the distance. But knowing something and seeing it were 2 completely different kinds of pain. Seeing him walk into her lobby with another woman, seeing the matching luggage, the easy familiarity, the intimate way that woman had touched his arm, the reservation for a couple's spa package. 5 nights. He'd planned 5 nights with someone else. A soft knock sounded at the door. Belle wiped her face quickly. "Yes?" The door opened slightly. Patricia, her assistant manager, a kind woman in her 50s with gray hair and knowing eyes, peeked inside. "I'm sorry to bother you." "You're not bothering me." Belle's voice sounded steadier than she felt. Patricia stepped into the office and closed the door behind her. She didn't say anything. She just crossed to Belle's desk and set down a cup of tea. Chamomile. The good kind. "Thank you," Belle said quietly. "The gentleman from earlier." Patricia chose her words carefully. "Mr. Rothwell, he's asking to speak with you. Tell him I'm unavailable." "I did." "He's quite insistent." "Then tell him I'm unavailable and insistent that he respect professional boundaries." Belle's voice hardened. "This is my workplace, Patricia. I won't have personal drama interfering with our guest's experience." Patricia nodded, but her eyes were soft with sympathy. "Of course, I'll handle it." After she left, Belle pulled out her phone. 12 missed calls from Marcus, 15 text messages, all variations of the same desperate plea. "Please, Belle, I can explain. Let me talk to you. I'm so sorry. Please." She read the last one. "Please don't do this. I love you." Her fingers hovered over the screen. For a moment, she considered responding, considered listening, considered giving him the chance to explain, apologize, beg. Then she remembered the look on his face when he'd seen her. Not guilt, not remorse, just shock, just panic at being caught. She blocked his number. The action felt small but significant. A line drawn, a boundary set. Her phone buzzed again. A text from her sister. "How's the first day going? Are you loving it?" Belle stared at the message. She thought about telling her sister everything, about Marcus, about the confrontation, about the humiliation and heartbreak. Instead, she typed back, "It's been eventful. I'll call you tonight." She set down her phone and looked out at the ocean. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink and orange. It was beautiful, breathtaking, the kind of view people paid thousands to wake up to. Belle took a slow breath, then another. She'd worked too hard to get here, sacrificed too much, poured too many hours and dreams and pieces of herself into building a career she was proud of. She wouldn't let Marcus's betrayal destroy what she'd built. She stood, straightened her suit, checked her reflection in the glass. Her eyes were red, but her expression was determined. She had a hotel to run, guests to care for, a team to lead. She could fall apart later. Right now, she had work to do. Marcus sat alone in his perfect suite, staring at his phone. Call blocked. The words glowed on the screen like an accusation. He tried 6 times, texted a dozen more, even tried to go to her office, only to be politely but firmly turned away by staff members who looked at him with barely concealed judgment. Now he sat on the edge of a king-size bed, scattered with rose petals that suddenly felt like mockery. Everything he'd planned, every detail he'd arranged, had become a monument to his mistakes. He thought about leaving, catching the next flight home, running away from the mess he'd created. But where would he go? Back to the penthouse that smelled like Belle's perfume and was filled with photos of their life together. Back to the brownstone that echoed with 8 years of memories. There was nowhere to run that didn't remind him of what he'd destroyed. His phone buzzed. For a desperate second, he thought it might be Belle. It was his assistant, just checking in. "Do you need anything while you're in Chicago?" Marcus stared at the message. Chicago. The lie he'd built this whole trip on. The deception that had seemed so simple, so foolproof. He didn't respond. Instead, he poured himself a glass of the champagne that had been chilling for him and Sienna. It tasted bitter. He drank it anyway. The sunset beyond his terrace was spectacular, orange and pink and purple bleeding across the horizon. The ocean glittered like diamonds. The infinity pool on his private terrace reflected the sky like a mirror. It was paradise, exactly what he'd promised Sienna, exactly what he'd paid for, and it was the loneliest place he'd ever been. A small voice in the back of his mind whispered that he deserved this, that this pain was nothing compared to what Belle must be feeling, that consequences were finally catching up to choices he'd made carelessly, selfishly, stupidly. He ignored the voice, or tried to, but it was getting harder. For the first time in months, maybe years, Marcus Rothwell didn't have a plan, didn't have an excuse, didn't have a way to charm or buy or lie his way out of what he'd done. He had nothing but the truth, and the truth was devastating. This is the moment that changes everything. Belle is standing at a crossroads between who she's been and who she's becoming. If this moment is hitting you right in the chest, show some love by smashing that like button and comment below. Do you think Belle should hear Marcus out? Or is blocking him the right move? Your thoughts matter. And don't forget to subscribe to Mr. David Love Stories for more powerful narratives about love, betrayal, and finding the strength to choose yourself. The next morning, Belle woke before dawn. She hadn't slept well. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's face in that lobby. The shock, the guilt, the panic. She got up, showered, and dressed in another perfectly tailored suit. She reviewed her schedule. Department head meetings, property inspection, guest services review, work. She could lose herself in work. She saw Marcus twice that day. Once by the pool, sitting alone on a lounge chair, looking lost and out of place among the laughing couples and happy families. Once in the lobby, standing near the windows, watching her from a distance. Each time, she kept walking. Patricia approached her mid-afternoon. "Mrs. Rothwell." Belle looked up from her computer. "Yes? This was delivered for you." Patricia held out a cream-colored envelope. Her expression said she knew who it was from. Belle took it, felt the weight of expensive paper, saw her name written in handwriting she'd know anywhere. She waited until Patricia left. Then she opened it. The note inside was handwritten, Marcus's familiar scrawl. "Belle, I know I don't deserve your time. I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I'm begging you, please, Just talk to me. Let me explain. Let me try to make this right. I know I've destroyed everything, but please don't shut me out completely. I'm in room 412. I'll be here, waiting, for as long as it takes. Marcus. Belle read it twice. Then she set it aside and returned to her work. She didn't go to room 412, but someone else came to see her that afternoon, someone she never expected. Patricia knocked on her office door late in the day. Mrs. Rothwell, there's someone here to see you. She says it's important. Who? A mess crossed. Belle went very still. Sienna? Patricia nodded, her expression carefully neutral. Belle took a slow breath. Then she stood. Send her in. A moment later, Sienna stepped into the office. She looked different than she had the day before. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her makeup was minimal. She wore jeans and a plain white shirt. She looked younger, vulnerable, uncertain. Thank you for seeing me, Sienna said quietly. Belle gestured to a chair. Sit. Sienna perched on the edge of the seat, like she might need to run at any moment. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched between them, heavy and complicated. Finally, Belle broke it. Why are you here? I wanted to apologize. Belle's laugh was hollow. For what? Sleeping with my husband? Sienna flinched like she'd been slapped. I know I can't. I mean, there's no excuse for what I did. Did you know he was married? Yes. Sienna's voice was barely above a whisper. He told me, but he made it sound like it didn't matter. Like you two were basically separated. Like you'd grown apart and were just going through the motions. Belle's hands clenched in her lap. Of course he did. I'm not trying to make excuses, Sienna said quickly. I know what I did was wrong. I knew it at the time. I don't know. I convinced myself it was okay because he said you didn't connect anymore, that you were more like roommates than spouses. We weren't. Belle's voice cracked. We weren't roommates. I loved him. I trusted him. I built my life around him. I know. Sienna's eyes were bright with tears. I can see that now. Yesterday, seeing how you handled everything with so much grace, I realized. She stopped, took a breath. I realized he lied to both of us. Belle looked up at her, surprised. Not about the same things, Sienna continued, but he lied. He told you he was in Chicago. He told me you didn't care. He built these separate realities and thought he could keep them from colliding. Her voice hardened. He's a coward. Yes, Belle said softly. He is. For what it's worth, Sienna said, standing. I'm leaving. I booked a flight home this morning. I'm not staying. I just wanted you to know that, and I wanted to apologize, face to face. Belle stood as well. She studied Sienna for a long moment, saw the genuine regret in her eyes, the shame, the uncomfortable realization of being complicit in someone else's pain. I appreciate that, Belle said finally. Sienna moved toward the door, then paused. She turned back. For what it's worth, I think he's an idiot. Belle looked up, startled. You're clearly incredible, Sienna continued. This hotel, the way your staff talks about you, the way you handled everything yesterday without falling apart in public. She shook her head. He had everything. A woman who loved him, respected him, built a life with him. And he threw it away for what? Weekend getaways and hotel rooms. He's a fool. Belle's throat tightened. She hadn't expected validation, especially not from this source. I hope you find someone who deserves you, Sienna said quietly, because he sure as hell doesn't. Then, she was gone. Belle sat back down at her desk. She felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness. She wasn't ready for that. Maybe she never would be. But something else. A loosening, a small step away from the anger and towards something that might eventually become acceptance. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, from a different number. Please, Belle. I saw Sienna leaving your office. Just give me 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Belle stared at the message. Then she blocked this number too. On the third evening, Marcus found Belle walking along the beach outside the resort. The sun was setting. She'd kicked off her heels and carried them in one hand. Her feet left prints in the wet sand that the waves immediately erased. Belle, please. She stopped walking, but didn't turn around. I know you don't want to hear this, Marcus said. His voice cracked with desperation. But I need to say it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Belle turned to face him then. Her expression was unreadable in the fading light. For what, exactly? Be specific, Marcus. What are you sorry for? For cheating? For lying? For bringing her here? For humiliating you? His words tumbled out. For everything. Do you even know why you did it? Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. The honest answer was that he didn't know, or he knew, but couldn't articulate it. Boredom? Ego? The thrill of something new? That's what I thought, Belle said quietly. I was stupid. Marcus tried. I got caught up in the excitement, the attention, the feeling of being wanted. And what was I? Belle's voice shook. Boring? Predictable? Not exciting enough? No. God, no. Belle, you're... He struggled for words. You're perfect. Apparently not, she said. Or I would have been enough. You were enough. You are. I lost sight of that. I got distracted. I made terrible choices. But I love you, Belle. I love you so much. Belle looked at him for a long moment. In her eyes, he saw something that terrified him more than anger. Sadness. I loved you, Marcus, she said. The past tense hit him like a physical blow. I loved you with everything I had. I chose you every single day for 8 years. I love you too, he insisted desperately. Loved, she corrected. Past tense, because the man I loved wouldn't have done this. Which means either you've changed into someone I don't recognize, or I never really knew you at all. Either way, that man is gone. Belle, please don't. I'm done, Marcus. The words were quiet, but final. I'm done being the woman you come home to when the excitement fades. I'm done being your backup plan, your safe harbor, your convenient excuse for stability while you chase whatever makes you feel alive. I can change, he said. The words sounded hollow, even to him. I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling, whatever you need. You had 8 years to choose me, Belle said. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but her voice never wavered. Every single day, you had the chance to choose me, to be honest with me, to value what we built together. And you didn't. You chose excitement over loyalty, secrecy over honesty, her over me. I chose wrong, Marcus whispered. Yes, Belle agreed. You did. And now I'm choosing differently. I'm choosing me. What does that mean? It means I'm done, Marcus. I'm filing for divorce. You'll hear from my lawyer next week. The words hit him like a sledgehammer. No. Belle, please, don't do this. This isn't me doing something to you, she said. This is me doing something for myself. Finally, I'll fight it, he said. I won't make it easy. Belle's laugh was bitter. You've never made anything easy, Marcus. Why start now? But fight it if you want. Drag it out. Make it complicated. It won't change the outcome. We're done. She turned and walked away. Her footsteps in the sand, the waves erasing them almost as quickly as she made them. Marcus stood alone on the beach, the sunset painting the sky in colors he didn't see, the ocean roaring in his ears. His wife had just walked away, and for the first time, he understood that no amount of money, charm, or apologies could bring her back. He'd lost her. Completely. Finally. Forever. The next 2 days passed in a blur for Marcus. He stayed in his suite, ordered room service he barely touched, stared at the ocean, called his lawyer, started making arrangements. On Sunday morning, his reservation ended. He packed his bags alone, carried them to the lobby alone, checked out at a different desk with a different staff member, carefully avoiding any chance of seeing Belle. The car that took him to the airport was silent. The flight home felt endless. The penthouse was exactly as he'd left it, empty, cold, echoing. He walked through rooms that Belle had decorated, saw photos of their wedding, their vacations, their life together. He wanted to smash them, or maybe frame them, or maybe just disappear into them and go back to a time when he hadn't destroyed everything. Instead, he sat on the couch and called his therapist. I need an appointment, he said, as soon as possible. It was the first honest thing he'd done in months. 6 months later, Marcus Rothwell sat in his therapist's office in the same leather chair he'd sat in twice a week for the past half-year. Dr. Reeves, a patient woman in her 60s with kind eyes and zero tolerance for bullshit, watched him from across the room. So, she said, the divorce was finalized yesterday. Yes, Marcus said. His voice was flat. How do you feel? Empty. He paused. No, that's not right. Accountable. I feel accountable. That's progress, Dr. Reeves said. Over the past 6 months, Marcus had done the work he should have done years ago. He'd examined why he'd cheated, why he'd lied, why he'd sabotaged the best thing in his life. The answers weren't flattering. He'd been chasing validation, feeding his ego, convincing himself that he deserved more, better, everything, without ever stopping to appreciate what he already had. He'd confused excitement with happiness, secrecy with passion, newness with value. He'd taken Belle for granted because she was steady and loyal, and he'd mistaken those qualities for boring instead of recognizing them as rare and precious. He'd lost himself in the image he'd built, the successful developer, the man who could have it all, and he'd forgotten that having it all meant nothing if you destroyed the foundation everything was built on. Have you reached out to Isabel? Dr. Reeves asked. No, Marcus said. She asked me not to, so I haven't. That's also progress. I wrote her a letter, though, he admitted. 6 months ago, right after everything happened. I don't know if she read it. She never responded. What did you say? The truth, Marcus said. That I was sorry, that I was working on myself, that I didn't expect forgiveness, but I wanted her to know I understood what I'd thrown away. He paused. That she was never the problem. I was. Do you believe that? Marcus nodded. Completely. Then you're learning, Dr. Reeves said. Learning, Marcus thought. Yes, but learning too late to save the one thing that mattered most. Across the country, in a beautiful apartment overlooking the ocean, Isabel Rothwell, who'd kept her married name professionally but reclaimed herself in every other way, stood on her balcony watching the sunrise. The Meridian Grand had become more than just a job. It had become her pride, her passion, her proof that she could build something beautiful even after her world had shattered. Under her leadership, the hotel had earned the highest guest satisfaction scores in the entire chain. She'd been featured in hospitality magazines, invited to speak at industry conferences, offered positions at even more prestigious properties. She'd turned them all down because this place, this hotel where her marriage had ended and her new life had begun, felt like home in a way nothing else ever had. The divorce had been swift. Marcus hadn't fought her. Maybe guilt, maybe acceptance. Maybe his therapist had told him to let her go. She didn't care enough to wonder. She'd thrown herself into work, into rebuilding, into therapy of her own, into remembering who she'd been before she'd become someone's wife. And slowly, piece by piece, she'd found herself again. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Patricia. Guest in the presidential suite left you a note of thanks. Says you made his daughter's wedding absolutely magical. You're a miracle worker, Belle. Belle smiled. Not a miracle worker, just someone who understood that the details mattered, that people mattered, that making someone feel valued and seen was worth more than any 5-star rating. She finished her coffee, grabbed her keys, and headed to work. Not because she had to, because she wanted to, because this life, this beautiful, hard one, entirely her own life, was more than she'd ever imagined possible. She'd started dating again, cautiously. Nothing serious yet. She wasn't sure she was ready for serious, but she'd had coffee with the visiting professor who'd asked her to dinner months ago. Dinner with a guest who'd returned specifically to see her. Drinks with a colleague from corporate who made her laugh. She wasn't looking for someone to complete her. She was already complete. But she was open to someone who could complement the life she'd built. Someone who saw her value. Someone who chose her every day the way she deserved. Her sister had visited last month. They'd sat on Belle's balcony with wine and watched the sunset. You're different, her sister had said. Lighter somehow. Belle had smiled. I'm remembering who I was before I became someone's wife. Before I made myself smaller to fit into someone else's life. You're thriving, her sister said. I am, Belle agreed. And it feels amazing. That evening, as Belle walked through the hotel lobby, greeting guests and checking in with staff, she passed the reception desk where her marriage had ended 6 months ago. She used to avoid this spot. The memories had been too raw, too painful. But now she walked past it, without flinching, because that moment, as devastating as it had been also been the beginning of her liberation. Marcus hadn't destroyed her. He'd freed her from a marriage built on her effort alone, from a version of herself she'd outgrown, from the belief that being chosen was the same as being valued. She'd chosen herself, and she'd make that choice again, every single time. Later that night, Belle sat on her balcony with a glass of wine, watching the stars emerge one by one over the ocean. Her phone rang, an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello? Mrs. Rothwell?" A woman's voice, professional, unfamiliar. "This is she. I'm calling from the National Hospitality Association. I'm pleased to inform you that you've been selected as General Manager of the Year." Belle set down her wine glass, her hand trembling slightly. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your leadership at the Meridian Grand has been extraordinary. Your guest satisfaction scores, your staff retention, your innovative programming. You've set a new standard for experiential hospitality. The award ceremony is next month in New York. We'd be honored if you'd attend to accept in person." Belle felt tears prick her eyes. Happy tears this time. Proud tears. "I'd be honored," she said. After she hung up, she sat in the darkness, letting the news sink in. A year ago, she'd been a woman who left love notes in her husband's briefcase and believed in a marriage that was already crumbling. Now she was an award-winning general manager, a woman who'd rebuilt her life from the ashes of betrayal, a woman who'd chosen herself and discovered that she was more than enough. She thought about Marcus, wondered if he was okay, hoped he was learning and growing and becoming a better person. But mostly, she didn't think about him at all, because her life wasn't about him anymore. It was about her, and that was the greatest love story of all. Belle's journey from heartbreak to healing reminds us that sometimes the worst betrayal leads to the most beautiful transformation. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently about self-worth and second chances, show some love with a like. Drop a comment telling me what's the biggest lesson you're taking from Belle's story. And if you're not already subscribed to Mr. David Love Stories, hit that subscribe button right now. We've got more powerful stories coming your way. Stories about love, loss, redemption, and the courage to choose yourself. Thank you for watching. Until next time, remember this: you are enough, exactly as you are. You don't need someone else to complete you. And sometimes, the person you need to choose first is yourself. Take care.